My name is Emma. I'm 22 years old, and for the past 2 years, this company was my entire world. I started as an intern who stayed too late, volunteered too much, and believed effort could outshine hierarchy. I wasn't chasing power, just purpose. And for a while, I found it here. Every email I wrote, every deadline I met, felt like proof that I mattered. People noticed. My boss smiled more often. The HR manager learned my name. Even the CEO stopped once to say, "You're going places." I believed him. Until the day they called my name into that quiet boardroom. The same place where promotions were celebrated and where I learned that loyalty has a limit. They didn't fire me for performance. They fired me for something far more human: love. And as I walked out that day, I made a promise. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Before everything collapsed, the office had felt like home. The hum of servers, the faint clatter of keyboards, and the quiet exchange of ideas filled the air with purpose. I used to arrive before dawn, the city still stretching awake, and leave long after its lights had gone to sleep. It wasn't ambition that drove me, it was belonging. Every file I closed, every deal I secured, felt like proof that loyalty meant something here. And then there was her. She wasn't the kind of distraction HR warned about. She was the steady voice during chaos, the only person who noticed when I skipped lunch or worked through the night. Our friendship began with laughter between deadlines, soft conversations shared over empty coffee cups. Somewhere between those late hours and unspoken glances, trust grew into something deeper, something we never named but both understood. The company's policy on relationships was no secret. It hung over us like a quiet threat, printed in bold on page 17 of the handbook no one dared challenge. But we believed our integrity would protect us. We believed hard work would speak louder than emotion. We kept our boundaries, our professionalism, our focus. Yet love doesn't follow corporate rules. It lingers in the way someone looks up when you enter a room, in the warmth that defies fluorescent light. Our team thrived then. We were efficient, respected, even envied. My colleagues trusted my judgment. My superiors praised my precision. Projects ran smoother than ever, and for a while, I let myself believe that success could shield us from scrutiny. The world outside that office didn't matter. Inside, there was purpose, belonging, and something dangerously close to happiness. If I had known how fragile it all was, I might have memorized those days more carefully: the sound of her laughter, the subtle pride in my team's eyes, the feeling of being exactly where I was meant to be. But storms never announce themselves. They gather quietly in the corners of comfort, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It started with whispers soft enough to be deniable, sharp enough to cut through the air. Conversations that once stopped out of politeness now paused out of curiosity. People began watching longer than necessary, smiles holding questions they didn't dare ask aloud. I told myself it was nothing. Offices feed on gossip the way cities feed on light, endlessly, hungrily. Still, something in the air had shifted, and even silence began to sound suspicious. Meetings I once led were suddenly rescheduled. Invitations stopped appearing in my inbox. Decisions about projects I'd built from scratch were made without me. When I asked, the answers came wrapped in corporate diplomacy: "You've been so busy, we didn't want to overload you." But it wasn't protection. It was exclusion disguised as courtesy. Then came HR's sudden warmth. The same department that barely noticed me before now wanted casual check-ins. Questions slipped into small talk. "How are you finding work-life balance these days?" Or, "Still spending late hours with the same team member?" Their tone was sweet, their intent sterile. I felt cornered in kindness. She sensed it too. My partner's laughter became forced, her eyes darting toward doorways whenever we spoke. The lightness we'd built turned fragile, replaced by hesitation. "Maybe they know," she whispered once, voice trembling. Maybe someone said something. I wanted to promise her it didn't matter, that truth couldn't be weaponized. But in offices like ours, truth wasn't safety, it was evidence. Soon, subtle inconveniences began to pile up. My email access flickered. Files I'd organized disappeared without trace. When I logged into secure folders, an error message blinked: "Permission denied." No one admitted to knowing why. Each glitch was small enough to seem accidental, yet deliberate enough to feel personal. I began to notice how quiet it had become, not peaceful quiet, but strategic silence. People avoided eye contact, doors closed just as I approached, and even the air conditioning seemed to hum with judgment. What used to feel like a family now felt like a courtroom. Every instinct told me something was coming, something precise and planned. The walls of trust I'd helped build were tightening around me, not to protect but to trap. I could feel the storm drawing nearer, invisible, inevitable, and already too close. The email arrived at 8:03 a.m. Subject line, mandatory meeting, compliance review. I stared at it for a full minute, feeling the chill crawl up my spine. The sender was HR, but the CC list told a deeper story: legal, operations, and the CEO's executive assistant. That combination never meant good news. My reflection in the monitor looked composed, but my pulse betrayed me, drumming against the stillness of the morning. When I walked into the boardroom, the air felt heavier than usual, that strange, artificial stillness reserved for executions disguised as discussions. My partner sat across the table, eyes fixed on the folder in front of her. She didn't look up. Around her, the HR manager and two members of legal arranged their papers with rehearsed precision, as if this was just another routine procedure. But the way their eyes avoided mine said otherwise. "Thank you for joining us," the HR head began, her tone professional yet brittle. "We've received multiple reports regarding inappropriate conduct in the workplace." Her words hung in the air like static. A relationship with a direct team member, non-disclosure of conflict of interest, breach of company policy. I didn't interrupt. I just watched the words fall from her mouth, one by one, like stones. Across the table, my partner trembled. They had cornered her too. They needed a confession, and silence was guilt enough. I looked at her, not with anger, but a quiet understanding. This wasn't her betrayal. It was the system's. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm. My work speaks for itself. Every project I led, every contract I closed, every client who stayed, none of that was misconduct. The legal advisor adjusted his glasses. "We're not questioning your performance," he said. "But perception is important in this organization." Perception. That single word was the knife. Not truth, not ethics, just perception. They twisted everything we had built, every long night of teamwork, every mutual success, into something shameful. Our commitment became collusion, our trust became bias. They reduced love to a liability. My partner tried to speak, voice cracking, it wasn't, but HR cut her off gently, like silencing a child. "Please, let's keep this professional." And just like that, they stripped her humanity away too. The decision was already written, printed neatly in an envelope waiting by the HR manager's hand. "Effective immediately," she said, sliding it toward me. The world narrowed, the weight of years reduced to one sheet of paper. I glanced at my signature at the bottom of the termination notice. It looked unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone already erased. I gathered my things slowly, deliberately. The room was silent except for the faint clicking of the HR manager's pen. My partner's hands shook. I could see her nails pressing crescent moons into her palms. The CEO wasn't even present. Of course not. Why stain his image with the act of firing someone who had built half his empire? As I reached for the door, the HR head said softly, "We appreciate your contributions." This decision wasn't personal. I paused, turned slightly, and met her eyes. That's exactly what makes it cruel. Outside, the hallway seemed longer than ever. Faces peeked from behind cubicle walls, curious, cautious, pretending not to stare. I walked past the desks I'd once led, the screens that had once displayed my ideas, the people who once called me a mentor. No one said a word. Fear had silenced them too. Security waited near the exit, polite, expressionless. They followed me down the glass corridor toward the lobby. Every step echoed louder than the last. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to look at. As the revolving door opened, the cold air hit my face, sharp, honest, real. For the first time in weeks, the silence wasn't oppressive. It was cleansing. I tightened my grip on the envelope and looked at my reflection in the glass. They had silenced my love, erased my name from their system, and rewritten my story. But as the wind rose around me, I felt something steady ignite beneath the humiliation, a quiet, unwavering truth. They could silence my love, but not my evidence, not my truth. The days that followed blurred into one another, an endless loop of silence, coffee gone cold, and thoughts that refused to rest. My phone stopped ringing. The inbox that once overflowed with urgency now sat empty, sterile, forgotten. It was astonishing how fast a name could disappear from a company's memory, how easily years of loyalty could be deleted with a single line in a system update. I tried to sleep, but sleep brought memories. Her laughter echoing in the corridor. The way the office lights reflected in her eyes when we planned late-night strategies. Those moments replayed like unfinished conversations, haunting me with what-ifs. I kept wondering if it had been worth it, the risk, the secrecy, the quiet rebellion against rules designed to keep us cold. Maybe I had been naive to believe that work and love could coexist in a place built on control. Anger followed quickly after grief. Not the loud, chaotic kind, but a quiet, razor-sharp anger that doesn't fade. I realized they hadn't just taken my job, they had rewritten my story. They'd turned sincerity into scandal, affection into ammunition. They'd made me the villain in a tale I hadn't written. That's when something inside me shifted. I stopped mourning what I'd lost and started focusing on what they'd hidden. My mind began to replay everything, every meeting, every email, every strange coincidence that had led to that final day. I opened old folders, searching not for closure but for patterns. At first, it felt desperate, a futile attempt to find logic in betrayal. But then I started noticing gaps. Missing attachments. Forwarded messages that shouldn't have existed. Files renamed in ways only someone in HR or legal could manage. The silence they'd left behind wasn't empty, it was evidence. Night after night, I sat in the glow of my laptop, piecing together fragments of truth. Screenshots of altered reports. Emails that had been flagged, then hidden. Backups of project documents I had once sent to myself, just in case. Every discovery was a pulse of clarity, small but alive. They had tried to erase me, but in their haste, they had left traces, digital fingerprints that told a story truer than their lies. The grief that had once kept me in bed now fueled me. I created folders, timelines, cross-reference dates. What began as therapy turned into an investigation. The more I uncovered, the more I understood. My firing had been more than personal, it had been strategic. Someone, somewhere, needed me gone. The apartment became both a refuge and a war room. My walls, once decorated with photographs of calm, now bore sticky notes, printed emails, flowcharts.